recap, started out with 6,671.43. We wrote an estimate for 12,363.99. We ended up with a final approval at the end of the day of 11,078.88. That is what we call results. Hello and welcome to another episode of What's Wrong with This Insurance Estimate. I just want to start by thanking you so much for the overwhelming support and feedback that we've been getting on our YouTube channel and on Facebook and on other platforms. And if you are finding value in this series, it would mean a lot if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the like button, please leave your comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And the question that I like to start with, and I'll start again with the same question, is are you just taking the insurance adjuster's word for it? Are you handling insurance repair projects and you go about doing that job by simply reviewing the insurance estimate that was already prepared and just assuming that there's enough money in that insurance estimate and you're just doing the job for whatever is on the insurance paperwork? If you're doing it that way, you're leaving money on the table. And so that's why this series was created, to really go through some of these insurance estimates that are written by adjusters and identify what's wrong with them and really break it down and show you, help you look deeper into it and help to show you where some of the common omissions are made. So we'll do that here. We'll start with this Allstate estimate that was written for one of our clients, a contractor in the Chicago market. And one quick word about Illinois. I was told by quite a few people, and I get this question a lot, Chad, I know that you guys do a great job and you get great results, but you don't understand Illinois. Like, Illinois is a totally different market, and your system and your process can't possibly work here in the Illinois, especially the Chicagoland market. And so I always beg to differ with that statement, with that concept, obviously. And it's not just because of an ego thing. It's because of the results. And I'm a student of the numbers. So the numbers tell me that Illinois really isn't a whole lot different than any other market across the United States and in Canada when it comes to these insurance companies. The rules are basically the same across the board. The standards are basically the same. Sure, there are differences in different markets, and I have no doubt that the field adjusters that you guys have to deal with out there in the Chicagoland are probably quite a bit different. One of the reasons is I would just surmise might be because that is one of the few states where, and I don't know of any other states actually, I think there might be a couple, where you're allowed to be a contractor and a public adjuster in the same state. You can hold both of those licenses and use them on the same job. So I think that might, like the insurance adjusters come up against different things there in that market than they do in other markets. But hey, you got to be a student of the numbers. You got to dive into the details. You have to do the work. You have to be diligent. You collect the proper documentation and data, and you can achieve higher results, even in the Chicagoland market and in any other market, wherever you are watching this video. If you work with insurance projects, insurance repair projects, then hopefully you'll find value from this. And the rules and standards in this episode are basically generally the same. This is now created in March of 2017. And so one of the things that you really need to focus on is that the times change, and they change fast. So if you're watching this video months and months down the road or years down the road, you want to make sure that you're staying up on the current times, because that's the thing that I see is one of the biggest challenges amongst contractors today, is that they learn how to achieve high results, but they stay with those methods. So the insurance companies change fast, and they change how they do things. And so if you get stuck in one way of doing things and become romantic about that method, the way that you achieve the highest success, then you could be stuck in a pattern that's hard to get out of. And when they make the changes, if you don't adapt and adjust along with those changes, then you could be left behind. So the thing I would say along with this episode is continue learning your craft and learn how they're doing things now. So let's go ahead and get into this. This estimate was written by an Allstate adjuster back in January of 2017. And the property is in Deerfield, Illinois. And we're really going to jump into building codes in this episode. We're going to go deeper into this. And so hopefully you'll pay close attention. We haven't covered a lot of the building codes lately. And if you utilize the information that comes from the building codes, you'll, number one, be able to stay compliant with laws. So you'll be able to, make sure that, and by doing so, you'll be able to protect your manufacturer's warranty. Everything has to be done according to manufacturer specs, but also you'll be able to justify why you have certain items in your estimate with the insurance company. Now, the thing you want to know is, does the property owner have OL coverage? So that's ordinances and laws. So that's code upgrade coverage. Now, so as a contractor, you don't really want to get involved with policy or coverage or participate in any kind of discussions, unless you are a public adjuster. Like I mentioned, some people in that state can do both. But if you're a contractor only, don't talk about policy or coverage when you're discussing these matters with the insurance companies. But you can, go as far as to find out, do you have code upgrade coverage? Do you have OL coverage? Have them look at the policy to find out. You don't need to look at it. Have them, get the information for you. And a good source of that information could lie with the agent. So if you can't find that information out, if the property owner can't find it out, have them check with their agent to get the information. So as long as they have OL coverage, which if they have a mortgage, they most likely do. But if they have OL coverage, then that means the insurance company definitely has to pay to make all repairs according to code. Okay, so we're going to really jump into that. So the thing to note is that this property is located in the city of Deerfield, Illinois. Okay, and we'll jump into that, we'll come back to that in a second. So, all right, this is a windstorm claim written with the January price list. This is the Chicago price list, Cook County, Illinois. Okay, moving on into it. We just have a basic standard 3-tab shingle, 25-year roof. This is the insurance company's estimate. This is one thing you'll see. They usually don't pay to remove the ridge cap. They did pay to remove the shingles. They paid to replace the shingles with a little bit of a waste. They did pay to replace the ridge cap, which is amazing because usually Allstate and State Farm and many other insurance companies don't even bother to pay for the ridge cap at all on a 3-tab shingle. They paid for felt 15-pound. You can see that it's lower than the 15.86 because of the next item, ice and water shield. I'm sure that's why they justified that. They did not pay, they did not estimate enough square footage for the ice and water shield, but they did pay for some. Thank you for that. But they subtracted however many square feet that is from the roof to come up with their 11.12 squares of roofing felt. Drip edge, R&R. One of the things to note, I always say this in these estimates, it does say R&R next to the drip edge here. I've noted in other estimates, and I've showed you where it'll just say drip edge, right? Instead of, in this particular one, it's gutter apron, drip edge. But in other episodes, I show you where it just says drip edge, and it doesn't say the R&R. So if you see that on any of these items, by the way, like this exhaust cap down here, if you see just drip edge without the R&R in front of it, then that means replace only. Okay, so like the ice and water shield, replace only. Roofing felt, replace only, because they're saying that you remove the shingles including the felt up here. So they're not going to put it again, R&R for this. So if you don't see the R&R, it just means replace only. It means they're not paying you to remove it. So the drip edge is done properly. Now they didn't do enough, as you see here, because they just did 98.17 linear feet, and the perimeter is 175.21. So they didn't give us enough there. I don't know if they just paid for the rakes or the eaves, one of the two. So we don't need to get in that. It's not relevant now, but 98.17. They did pay the R&R though. So they are saying, okay, we're going to pay you for the removal and for the replacement. So they did that properly. Detach and reset the gutters and downspouts, and they put a footnote, needed to access the drip edge gutter apron. Thank you for that. And then the gutter guard, detach and reset, needed to access the drip edge gutter apron. Okay, roof vent turtle type metal. So here they said replace only, right? No R&R in front of that. Flashing pipe jacks, replace only on the exhaust cap. R&R, so they said, okay, we are going to give you the removal for this here, for the roof mount power attic. So as you can see, the total RCV for the roof right here as it stands, as it stood at the time rather, was 6504.68 for the roof. See if they have anything else. Okay, they've got a 0.25, so they're saying a quarter of a pickup truck we're going to give you for debris. And they're giving us an open item because you can see that it's marked $0 for the permit. So there's, and with a note, we'll update when permit comes in. So they have acknowledged it, said 0, open item means that, hey, we know that there's going to be a permit. You get us a copy of the permit as incurred when the roof is completed, and we'll pay for it, is what they're saying there. Now let's go back to that pickup truck. They're saying a quarter of a pickup truck. And if you say, well, you know, that's not going to cover all of the debris on this roof, obviously. Well, if we really dive into the item for the removal of the 3-tab shingles, including felt, and there's another item, by the way, that says no, no haul off, right? Meaning that you would definitely have to put a dumpster with it if you didn't have that. But this item includes hauling away the shingles and the felt. Okay, so they say, well, a lot of times you ask for a dumpster, they say, oh no, the item to remove the shingles already includes the dumpster. It definitely does not. It does include some, right? But just for the shingles and the felt, and I'll give you the nails also. So it doesn't include any of these other items. It doesn't even include the ridge cap. It doesn't include the ice or the drip edge, the flashing, the vents, the pipe jacks, chimney flat, you know, all those other things on a roof. It doesn't include those, so it doesn't include drywall and, you know, siding and fencing and all, you know, other things that you might find on your project. So now the item does say also, unless the contractor is using his own equipment, so his or her own equipment. So like if you're using a haul off, like a dump trailer, then it's saying that that's already included. But if you're using a dumpster, like you have to have it ordered and placed at the job, then it's not inclusive of all that. So, and this particular adjuster was one of very, very few that actually agreed with that in this estimate. We'll cover that. But just so you know, like those are, like that dumpster thing can be a very vague item that people don't generally understand. So if you have any other questions about that, please comment below. Okay, so we'll keep moving. And then so you see the total on this estimate here essentially was $6,671.43. Okay, and that's where it started out. And I guess, you know, with after the taxes, 65. Yeah, no, 60. I was right. 6671.43. That's the total. Okay. Now, so we wrote an estimate for our contractor client. We submitted it to Allstate. We whited out the necessary information as we did with the original Allstate estimate to protect confidential information, of course. All right, we wrote an estimate. Now let's start. Remember I said it's in Deerfield, Illinois. Okay, so in Deerfield, Illinois, this is real simple to do. This is not rocket science. The codes, the building codes, is something that I think that people are intimidated by. I count myself among those people. I definitely was. I got some really sharp people around me that showed me that it's not as difficult as it's made out to be. So what we're thinking about here is the International Residential Codes, okay? So that's the IRC. Now, if it's a commercial job, it's going to be the International Building Code, but they're pretty much very, very similar, okay? But now these codes are released, the IRC are released every 3 years. So going back, we're talking about basically even as far back as like 2006, 2009, 2012, and 2015 IRC codes. There's other codes that come into play sometimes, which like the IECC, which are the energy codes, the International Energy Conservation Codes. Those are federal energy, like insulation and things like that, come into play with the IECC. For right now, we're going to focus on the IRC. Now, it's an international code, right? And cities and states across the U.S. essentially will adopt one version or another of the IRC, and it's the year. Which year version are they going to go off of? So we need to know which version Deerfield, Illinois is using of the IRC, which year. So it's real easy. We just type something like this: City of Deerfield, Illinois, building codes. Let's walk through this and figure out how to do it, okay? And don't know which one it is here. I'm going to guess that it's probably this one. And look, so I'm going to dial this up a little bit for you. All right, here is the city of Deerfield, Illinois. We go right in. I had it here. Okay, here it is. So right here on this page, International Code Rules, we can see right here that the village of Deerfield adopted the 2012 International Codes. Okay, and which ones? Down here we can see for residential, this is the one that comes into play. So it's the 2012 International Residential Code. Now that's not the most recent version. The most recent version is the 2015 International Residential Code. Now, if we're dealing with insulation and such, the good news is they also adopted the 2015, the most recent version of the IECC codes. So if like we have to deal with fanfold insulation on siding or ISO board on roofing, and insulation issues, there's ventilation. There are many issues that come into play under the 2015 IECC. So, but right now we'll just focus on the fact that they have adopted the 2012 IRC. Now, one thing I want to say here is that you also want to focus on like what did the state adopt? In this case, the state I think is even lower than the 2012. So if the state say is 2009, then you want to go with in the city is 2012. You want to go with the most recent version. So, but in the strange case, and I don't think I see this at all. But let's say the state like uses 2015 across the whole state, okay? Then you wouldn't even need to look at the city because that's the most recent version. So if the city said 12 or 9, then you wouldn't even have to worry about that because the state supersedes all of that and you would go off of the most recent version. So, but in this case, it's Illinois. So we're going and we're looking at each, and Illinois doesn't use the most recent version, 2015 as a whole. So we're going to the city, we're finding out that this is what they've adopted. That means the insurance company must pay everything according to the 2012 International Residential Code, if they have the OL coverage. Okay, got it? So you would want to take a screenshot of this page, which we've done, and we've placed it into this estimate, and we'll show you where that comes into play. All right, so we know right now the rules of this estimate are we're using the 2012 International Residential Code going forward. All right, any differences between our estimate and the original adjuster estimate are indicated in bold. This may apply where the line items are missing entirely from the adjuster estimate and or where the line items differ in some way. Let's just go through it. We have remove ridge caps. So we write our estimates in the order of the job: remove, 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 and then all the accessories and such sandwiched in the middle, R&R, R&R, and then replace, 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 in the order of the job. You'd start the job by removing the ridge cap, removing the shingles, and we put a note in here that this item does not include anything other than the removal of the shingles and felt. It does not include the removal of ridge caps, starter strips, valley metal, drip edge, vents, pipe jacks, or anything else. All other items must be accounted for separately. Also, any mention of the dump, waste removal above does not apply to any other line items on this job other than the shingles and the felt. And this only if the contractor is using their own equipment. This is why there's a dumpster item in the general conditions section of this estimate. So the thing that we were talking about before. The official Xactware description for this item below. So if you were in Xactimate using the software and you clicked on the illustration for that item, this is what it says. It says it includes the dump fees, hauling, disposal, and labor to remove 3-tab shingles and felt. Notice it doesn't say anything else, right? So we're taking it right from Exact. They're using Xactimate as the rules, so let's play by the rules. Note, if additional layers are to be removed and disposed of, use additional item. Removal cost is based off hauling done with contractor's own equipment. If haul off is to be estimated separately, or if the removal is being estimated with a dumpster or other equipment, use the other item. So we have remove drip edge, remove flashing. They didn't say anything about the flashing. They didn't say anything, that's why it's in bold. They didn't say anything about the chimney. They didn't say anything about the pipe jack lead flashing here. They didn't say anything about the turtles. They didn't say anything about the, the removal of the turtles, the removal of the exhaust cap. They did, if you remember, they did put R&R, the power attic, but they didn't have large. They didn't say removal or replacement of the flashing. Now, let's talk about why they do have to replace these. So you're going to run into insurance estimates where it says detach and reset turtle vent, or detach and reset pipe jack, and things like that. So now this code, this note where we start saying replace, 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 replace flashing. Why? Flashing will be damaged during tear off. And why do we have to have that in here? Well, it's to comply with the IRC 2012 907.5 reinstallation of materials. Now watch this very closely, because this, just about every version of the code has this, and this will come into play for chimney flashing, and there's other things about chimneys too, but flashing for anything, step flashing, L-wall flashing, regular flashing, flashing around pipe jacks, flashing around skylights, cap flashing, so many, parapet wall flashing, flashing around AC units in some cases, flashing around just about anything, wherever there's flashing, any metals at all. Look at what it says in the codes, which is law. Any existing flashings, edgings, outlets, vents, or similar devices that are part of the assembly shall be replaced where rusted, damaged, or deteriorated. Okay? So now what does that mean? Rusted, damaged, or deteriorated. Okay? So it's funny, I was talking to a State Farm adjuster not too long ago, and I quoted that to them. They were reading it in the estimate, and the guy said, "Oh yeah, but with State Farm, we don't that doesn't come into play. We don't pay based on rusted, damaged, or deteriorated, just if it's deteriorated." I said, "Well, yeah, actually you do." And it's the same guy that said that they don't pay based on manufacturer specifications, which we'll get into next, because he just simply didn't understand the codes. He didn't understand what the codes even said. And unfortunately, I find that that's the case more times than not, where the adjuster just simply doesn't even understand the codes. So how could they even estimate the job properly if they don't even understand the codes, number one, and they don't know the codes of the jurisdiction where they're at? They don't go and do the simple little research that we just did right here. We went to Google, saw. So now I'm going to skip ahead just because I want to show you at the very end, we put actual snapshots of the code and where they can find it. Because they say, well, get us the codes and then we'll consider it, right? And it's because they don't know where to find them. They don't understand anything about the codes. So they say, get us the codes, and then we'll go, and then we put a snapshot here of what we just saw. See, we went back and searched that before. So get us the codes, and then we'll review it. So if you have to go, don't complain about that, just fine, go do the work, right? Get the information, get it together, and put it right in front of the adjuster in a neat little package with a bow on it, and explain to them why you have it in the estimate, and then lock it down, check and checkmate with the codes, right? So you don't have to talk about policy and coverage or anything like that. Your thing is that you're the contractor, and your job is to perform all the repairs that have been prescribed by this particular claim. Okay, so your position is, look, I looked at your original estimate that you wrote. Okay, I saw all the items here, I'm setting out to carry out this project according to those specifications. But the problem is that I cannot break the law in order to do so, because the law says that I have to do it according to code. So now the flashings, getting back to that, you bring this up, and the adjuster says, well, why do you need to replace the flashings? Because it's rusted, damaged, or deteriorated. Yeah, well, we don't have any notes of any hail damage to the flashing. I never said anything about hail damage to the flashing. I just said that rusted, damaged, or deteriorated. And what does that mean? Let's just think about that. A nail that is going through that flashing, and like anywhere where it initially fastened it to the roofing system, right? A nail going through it, screw or otherwise, that is damage to the flashing. That is all you need. Trust me. Just get a photo of that, and that's all you need. If it's rusted even a little bit, they've got to replace it. It says right there, rusted, damaged, or deteriorated. If it's deteriorated in any manner, it's got to go. If it's bent a little bit, just a little bit, or if it becomes bent during the tear-off, that is damage. It does not have to have hail damage. It's a common misconception. And I'm talking about dealing with these things by the hundreds. You'll see that more times than not, they cover these items because they have to. So here you go. That's the code on the flashing. That applies for really all of these pipe jacks, roof vents, all of these items. That same footnote can go in with those. So the ice and water shield, they approved it initially. Otherwise, we would apply the building code for ice and water shield as well. But typically that ice and water shield has to cover the eaves, right, and the valleys. So how much? So in the valleys, you've got 3 feet. So, but on the eaves, and this applies where they're in cold climate temp. So if you really dive deeper into the building codes, it has to be in certain climates and certain regions of the country where it's considered a cold weather climate. So there's a lot more information on that. But for argument's sake, let's just go ahead and assume that this is a cold weather climate. Chicago, Illinois, it is. So it comes into play. Now, what is a common mistake for adjusters is they'll say that there's only 3 feet needed on the eaves, right? But in the code, it says that it has to go in 2 feet from the exterior wall in and a foot out from the edge of the exterior wall. So a foot from the edge or the overhang, and there's a lot more into that too. But in summary, the short version is that they commonly forget about the thickness of that exterior wall. So if you add that to the 3 feet, which is a typical size, 3 feet is what you're thinking, you add that to the 3 feet, now you're over the 3 feet. Okay, so now you need 2 rolls. And so you need 6 feet because ice and water shield is typically about 3-foot rolls. And so now you need 6 feet to cover the eaves. So you have to go eaves times 6, okay, plus valleys times 3 to come up with that number. All right, replacement of the drip edge and the asphalt starter. Okay, so the starter course, this is another one of the subjective items really, is that the code requires that you have to, and again, all the codes require this one. This is another great default item to base your estimate on, is that any and all circumstances and any and all scenarios, you must follow the manufacturer's specification in any and all cases. Okay, so if you're using GAF or Owens Corning or TAMCO, you need to track down those manufacturer specs. Okay, and why is that? I mean, if you're offering a lifetime shingle, okay, and it's got this manufacturer warranty on it, and if something happens to that roof that falls under the manufacturer, people think it's under the manufacturer, and they file a claim with GAF or whoever the manufacturer is, they're going to send out a representative, much like the insurance company sends out an adjuster to inspect the roof. And the first thing they're going to look for is, was this roof completed according to manufacturer specifications? And if it wasn't, that could be one of the first things that they use to deny a manufacturer warranty claim. Okay, so you're out there selling these great roofs because they have these great warranties. Those warranties could be voided and compromised if you're not doing your job right. Pardon me. So two reasons there to make sure that you follow manufacturer specifications. Number one, so as not to void out the manufacturer warranty. And number two, because it's always required, that should be number one really, required by law. So, Mr. Adjuster, I'm sorry, but you can't force me to go out and break the law today, okay? So you must follow So the manufacturer specifications require starter course, they require ridge caps, they require certain things, okay? So if we have items in our estimate because the manufacturer's required it, let's spell those out. Starter course is one of those. Ridge caps is another. So, but now I'll give you the common pushback that you'll get from adjusters, though, is they'll say, well, that's included in the waste factor. Well, is it really? So is it really? Let's do the homework and let's figure out, is it included with the waste factor? What is the actual waste factor? So like in this case, we have our waste factor here to come up with the 18.33. And that's 15%. We're saying that does not include the starters in the ridge. So now that's an estimated waste factor, but if you came up with the actual waste factor, you might come up with 12, you might come up with 17, depending on your particular roof. So technically, if they want to get real technical about it, we need to figure out what is the actual waste factor of the roof for just the shingles, right? And then let's add on what the ridge caps are and what the starter course is. That's the exact accurate way of doing it. If they've not done it that way, then it's not correct. Okay, now we have seal and paint the trim, 2 coats. And what is that, right? I mean, you see that on a lot of the estimates. You see that where the adjusters just sort of give that. And I think that's kind of why you have to have it there, because you never know when they're going to pay for it, when they're not. And they say, well, why? What is it for? Some think that it's for painted drip edge. If the drip edge is painted, then for sure that's what it has to be there. But I'll give you another scenario too. If you tear off the drip edge from the fascia, chances are you've damaged the paint on that fascia, depending on what kind of fascia it is, or if it's a metal fascia, you've probably scratched it. So you can probably make a case that like if they want to question it and they say, well, that's a drip edge that comes in that color, right? So we shouldn't have to pay to seal and paint the drip edge in addition to that. Well, you can make a case could be made then, well, that's not the drip edge, it's the fascia. And of course, there's another item that specifically says seal and paint fascia or paint fascia. We could be using that too. So I think, if they really want to drill you down on that, then I think you have a couple of different reasons to back it up. Okay, so we have a couple other items here, roofer per hour to manipulate certain things. Special access. This is a good one to use for, they say, where's the special access charge in Xactimate? There isn't one. So if the houses are too close together and there's like if the materials have to be placed in the driveway and the driveway is nowhere near where they have to get up on the, if the materials have to be transported kind of across the property to get there. So a lot more labor involved with that, right? So you have to put an item in there. The best way to do that is roofer hours. They don't always include these things. And this one's just a recent approval that we got back, which we're going to cover here in a second. And we're still going to work at that. I'm not sure if they added that yet. We'll go over that. And then HVAC tech to manipulate chimney flue, etc. I think that's because they put that in there, the first part. Let's go back to that. Okay, the gutter guard. We put removal and replace because we're saying that it's going to be removed during the tear off, so we can't detach and reset like they said. And then the detach and reset gutter, they had that in there. And then the other thing, the big one that they missed, was remove and replace the custom fascia, had a custom wrap, aluminum custom wrap around the fascia. That's a big deal. I mean, look how much money that is, $1582 for 103 linear feet. So, and the drip edge was nailed to that fascia, right? So there's no way, there's no getting around it that it's going to be damaged during the course of removing and replacing this roof. So then we have here the dumpster for all other debris other than shingles and felt, and then mask and cover to protect and cover the landscape. That's something that doesn't always get approved, but it's worth putting it in there for the times that it does. And then we've got a labor minimum here. That's something that Xactimate automatically comes out with that may or may not be approved by the insurance company. And then so we have in our estimate, in summary, the grand total $12,363.99. And again, if you remember, we put a screenshot of all of the codes that come into play. Manufacturer specs, non-reuse of the flashing, Deerfield, Illinois. And then on the original estimate we submitted them all, the rest of the pages were filled with photos. We edited those out. Okay, and then now the revised estimate. Shortly thereafter, then a week, 2 weeks, got a response back, and we're actually still working on it because they have a couple other questions that we're going to try to add some of the things that they haven't added thus far. But we did really good so far. So what we have is they've decided to give us the universal starter course. And this is kind of rare, you know, adjusters don't always give this, but they even went as far as to give an explanation as to why. And I love their explanation. The shingle line item makes no mention of the starter strip. So imagine that. Next time you talk to an adjuster and they say, oh no, that's already included. Oh, but the shingle line item, according to this bright Allstate adjuster here, I must say, makes no mention of the starter strip. That was rare that you'd see them actually make an explanation about that. So 17.67, I think we had 18.33. They didn't go quite as far, but maybe theirs is a little more accurate, right? Maybe there is the actual waste factor plus the ridge caps and the starter. Again, remove and replace ridge cap. How refreshing. How refreshing to see when an adjuster tells the truth, right? I mean, because here you have, they hardly ever want to pay for the ridge cap on a 3-tab shingle system. And then when they do, they say, oh, we're not paying for the removal of the ridge cap because that's included in the tear off of the shingles. It's not. We already covered that, right? And so it was refreshing to see them, number one, pay for it in both ways, but then to put this nice little description. Although these shingles will be removed along with the rest of the roof, the removal process will be needed in order to start the removal of the rest of the roof. The ridge removal will be needed in order to start scraping off the rest of the shingles. I have conceded this to the contractor as his argument is logical and the line item detail is clear that the removal of these items is only generally included in the full roof removal. So thank you, Mr. Adjuster. Thank you very much for conceding to that logical argument. Much appreciated for the shout out there, my friend. All right, so the roofing felt. The first adjuster, I think, had 11. This guy went 9.68 because he included the proper amount of ice and water. He didn't put a footnote as to why, but you can see that he agreed that our version was more accurate. 6 foot times the eaves plus 3 foot times the valleys. That's how we came up with this. So the drip edge, R&R, and notice that he covered all of them instead of just part of them. So he's got the eaves, 103, and the rakes. So the first adjuster said just one or the other. I think he had like 90-something feet. I don't remember. Downspout, detach and reset, 103. Gutter guard screen, check it out. Instead of detach and reset, R&R with a refreshing explanation of the truth. This will be damaged during removal. Love it. Now, roof vent turtle type. He did not agree with our logic on this one. That's okay. We can forgive him for that. In fact, you know, that's kind of why, like, some of these items are the removal of turtle vent, the amount for the removal is not that much. So if they don't agree with you on a couple of these, it gives you something to give them back, right? But it says vent is installed as roofing is applied. This removal activity is intended to be used when the vent only is being removed for disposal. If the vent is being removed along with the shingles on the same roof slope, the vent removal would generally be done with the shingle removal line item. See, that might maybe so, but I don't agree with that, because then that kind of throws out everything else. Like when you remove the shingles, it includes the dump and the haul off and all those different things. So I don't agree. I think that any additional labor for anything, additional weight even that turtle vent would include additional labor, additional effort, which is additional labor. So, however, again, I will happily say, Mr. Adjuster, no problem. We'll work with you on that, give you back that item, the removal of those, no problem at all. So he said the same argument for the flashing, no problem. Although here he says that he kind of contradicts himself, because he says item description does not say that this line item will be removed with the shingles. I guess he's going off of the illustrations there. But you see, if the roof vent, turtle type, is included with the removal, why would the exhaust cap be? You see what I mean? So that same logic applies. That argument R&R for all these items here should also be applied for those. So we have the power attic vent was up to a large. Chimney flashing, I actually saw a mistake that we made, and I didn't want to say anything about it when I saw it. But if you notice back on our estimate for our chimney flashing, we contradicted our own selves, because we didn't have R&R chimney flashing, but we caught it on the approval. So we just had replace only, but it was corrected and reconciled here, where the adjuster approved R&R chimney flashing, whereas in the first estimate it wasn't even addressed. The adjuster also approved the 5 linear feet R&R of 14-inch wide flashing, and then a biggie, which we discussed, is the custom fascia, the custom wrapped fascia, the aluminum wrapped fascia, which, by the way, comes with a $1,568, a big deal, and with a nice, refreshing, and honest footnote explaining why, which was matched ours. He followed the same logic and agreed with us. Drip edge is nailed to the aluminum wrapped fascia, thus damaging the fascia during tear-off. It's actually not a genius assessment. It's just logical common sense, right? Which anybody can come up with. And because you have to replace that fascia, what do you have to do? Now you have to paint it, right? So he got that as well. So they went from $6,000 something for the roof to $10,509.11, and we're getting up there. And then look what he said here: dumpster. He didn't go with our 20-yard dumpster, but he gave us a 12-yard dumpster instead of that. Remember what it was? It was a quarter of a pickup, 0.25 pickup, right? So he definitely agreed that needs to go bigger than that. He gave us a full 12-yard dumpster and explained why. He's sticking with the Xactimate actual rules. That's why I keep saying it's refreshing. Like they say, no, our estimate has to be done in Xactimate. So if you're going to give us an estimate, it must be in Xactimate. But then they don't want to follow the rules that Xactimate lays out for you, very clear in black and white, except for this bright adjuster. I've conceded a dumpster load, as the shingle disposal in the line item only accounts for contractors who are using their own equipment for the disposal. Love you for that, brother. And when we get the roof done, we'll have a permit to be incurred to submit along with that. Wonderful. Now, you may find that, I just want to say in review, when we came, we'll get the summary here in a second. I was going to say, you may find that the adjuster will, you cover the logic behind all the codes requiring the replacement of flashing, etc., right? And you bring up the codes. One of the things they may say, and they say why it's not hail damage. You say it doesn't require to be hail damage. It has to be damage. And they may say, all right, but we're not going to give it to you now. We will give it to you, but you have to submit us photos showing us the damage, okay? So sometimes they don't require that before the build, like in this case, but a lot of times they do. So that's why it's important that you get them the estimate before the build, cover these issues before the build, get a list of the things that they say they are going to approve, but with the photos. That way you can follow it all the way through to get it approved. I find too many times where guys, they'll do a really great job, strong all the way through, and then they drop the ball when it comes to just carrying out the simple task of collecting those photos to back it up, which they're willing to give you. Show them the code, show them the photos, and it's a done deal. Your results will be much higher. The results like this one, which always speak for themselves,
final RCV, and I shouldn't say final because we're still working to get it up, and it may go up even further after the build, right, is 11,000, it will because of the permit, is 11,078.88. So quick recap, started out with 6,671.43. We wrote an estimate for 12,363.99. And we ended up with a final approval at the end of the day of 11,078.88. That is what we call results. The proof is in the results. Please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, visit our website at overheadandprofit.com. We provide Xactimate estimating services, complete with invoice management for insurance repair contractors, and we're also available for consulting work. So if you have any needs or any questions at all, please do contact us on our website. Otherwise, if you just have questions in general, please comment below. Feel free to get in contact. We'd love to hear from you. Again, thank you so very much for your interest in this series. We'll keep pumping them out. We hope you have a phenomenal week. Keep up the hard work and keep grinding, my friends.